All right. All right, y'all. How y'all doing? I am Denise Camille, Urban Love Therapist, relationship and self coach. Coming to the barbershops every Saturday, 20-minute talk. Y'all can time me. I'm gonna time myself. So for today's topic, so we do definitions first. Today's topic is how do you define vulnerability? How to define to be vulnerable? Let me say, define vulnerable. Because I got a lot of definitions today that just. To be open. Okay. Okay. To allow yourself to be hurt by other people. Open enough to be, and genuine enough to be, if something was to kick off, you might get hurt. Okay, so here's my, no. Okay. So let me say this. Since you said that, right.
Position to where you could get hurt, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, whatever. Vulnerable, you're in a position where you could get hurt, but it doesn't guarantee that you will.
But my thing is, okay, you first. That was the first thing that you associated with vulnerability, though. Is the potential for pain. That's
right.
That's one that I want to point out.
Yeah. Okay, so open for pain.
Or success. It could go either
Just
way.
being open for life to happen to you, right? Okay. So, two things. When I went to the other barbershops today, their word for vulnerable was weak. That was their first word. And I was like, how we go there? How we go to weak, right? So, somebody did say being open, yet there was somebody else that said it's not good to be vulnerable, right? Because like you're saying, being open for hurt, yet
I was just having this conversation. Actually, that's been coming up a lot lately.
to be vulnerable.
I think that this what makes life worth living.
Okay, so because what I was gonna say was, to be vulnerable, does that, just like you said about having the risk, right, or the openness, I would say it's more of the risk of having a heart, right? Because your heart is going to be what? Broken. Everybody has a broken heart at some point, right?
I think it's being available.
To
that might be my word. That available to other people, so that they'll know, how you feel.
Okay.
And that they know how you feel. You know what I'm saying? Like again, like if you're open and available, that means that if somebody asks you a question, you give them a direct answer about how you truly feel. But I think that it's a matter of also knowing
who you
how you
are.
feel, like, you know what I mean? Like,
okay.
Sometimes you're not really in touch enough with yourself to be able to explain that to somebody else.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So when you said that, I was hearing, is vulnerable in the same category as the word validated?
That's the word what?
Validated. Because some people say, you can hear me, I'm giving you my information, but you're not receiving it, so I don't feel validated. Because you're being vulnerable enough to say what you got to say, but if that person doesn't receive it, then you're not being validated. You want to connect them? Okay.
I think it's like seeking validation, maybe.
Okay.
Because
All right.
to be vulnerable with somebody, it's like because you want them to really know your heart.
But you also want to be genuine, like he was saying. And being vulnerable, you want to be genuine for who you are.
Right. Sometimes people don't always.
But that's on them.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that when you're vulnerable, is there like a subconscious filter that you don't allow them to hurt you, or be open to get hurt to then realize there's a lesson to that vulnerability? Or is that too much of a loaded question?
I think true vulnerability means you are allowing yourself to be hurt. Like if your vulnerability gets rejected,
right,
you already know that that's a possibility when you put yourself out there.
So okay, I get a prime example. Me coming into the barbershops, I can say I'm vulnerable enough to come into the barbershops, whether y'all reject me or not. That first time I was like, okay, I'm not coming back here. Because I felt like y'all was throwing darts with no fire. I was like, you know what? I could stand up and fight. That's how I felt, right? I could stand up and fight, and I could say, you know what? I'm not coming back. And I was talking to my brother. He was like, no, Denise, go back.
That's why you go back.
To what? To be vulnerable?
Well, yeah, because I think that I think persistence is important with vulnerability. You know. What
Ooh, I like that one.
Because like,
Persistent. Did y'all hear that? Persistence is important with vulnerability. Okay.
like if you don't, I guess keep making yourself available.
Okay.
Then I think people won't ever get like your
True self.
like,
Okay.
that, you know what I mean?
But what if you feel vulnerable to the point of you keep giving and giving and being vulnerable, yet you don't know what, I don't want to say you don't know what you're receiving, because in reality, it's like another option of you don't know what other people are thinking when you're vulnerable. So like there's another barbershop, I hadn't gone in a while, and I happened to go back today, and they was like, when are you coming back? We need you. I'm like, oh, y'all need me? I didn't think y'all wanted me there.
Yeah, like y'all wasn't even talking.
Y'all wasn't even talking back. Y'all was here over conversation. They were like, no, we need you because we know you can regulate the men in here. You keep them together. And I was like, oh, if I don't get that feedback for vulnerability. So let me go, hold on to that though, right? Let me go to the next definition. How would you define voice? Right. What is a voice?
When you say that, do you mean like?
Just in general, what's a voice?
I guess a way to express yourself.
Okay.
You can kind of express yourself in ways that verbal, still have a voice.
Right.
Like I think I was talking to you last week about like you setting a boundary.
Right.
And just not making myself available.
Right. That's the voice, right?
To other people, it's like who they used to have a wider.
Right, a wider, because you were vulnerable to them, but they weren't vulnerable to you.
They took that and took advantage of it.
Right.
So like, okay, now I'm going to close my boundaries.
Right.
So yeah, I got to keep you further away.
Okay.
Because you didn't respect my voice when you heard it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's over a period of time. Like I said, you know, you be persistent over time.
Right.
And it seemed like just as consistently and persistent as you are with being vulnerable, they're not accepting or hearing you.
What you're saying.
You do got to retreat.
Okay.
In my opinion, you know.
Okay. So would you say, because today's question is, are you vulnerable to your voice? To your own voice, right.
I am.
Okay. So was that always your yes?
It took me years to realize that I'm not a good listener.
Well,
Like it took me to get married to realize I wasn't a good listener.
really?
And then it was like, oh.
So after the marriage, like actual wedding and everything, then you realized
You know, within a few years.
you needed to start to listen and not just hear.
Yeah. So, like, if I can't hear other people, I definitely ain't listening to myself. You know.
Well, yeah,
being in
true.
tune with my own
So
feelings and voice and all
now
that.
looking back on that, what was it that was blocking your voice so you could be vulnerable to it?
I think it was a little ego there.
I was gonna say that sounds like a big ego.
Like,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. When would you say that ego was developed?
Just, you know, saying things develop over time. You know.
Like if you were to give an age,
I think
like 8.
I think, yeah, you know, when you're a child, you put
Okay.
up certain guards, you put up
Okay.
certain defenses, and
Okay.
you kind of do your formative years, you know.
Right.
You form
These personalities.
yeah.
Okay.
You know,
And
and you
it's-
see other people with these personalities, and they seem so strong. You're
Right.
Like, okay, well, I want to be like that.
Okay.
Agreements that you make with yourself.
So are they more than the 4 agreements? You know in the book, The 4 Agreements?
What's
So
that?
there's a book called The 4 Agreements, and one of them is be intentional with your word, right? What's the other 3? Oh God. It's a quick read book. It's really quick, like 2 seconds.
From that book was just that over time we make agreements with ourselves and then we don't go back and
Revisit.
revisit those agreements. So some people for their whole life think of agreements that they made as a child or a child. They never
Oh.
go back and revisit those
Okay.
They just live their life, keep telling themselves the same thing over and over, and wonder why they stay stuck.
So they're agreeing to something that they don't even agree with.
They don't even
So the
agree with
contract
it
been
anymore.
broken.
But they
Oh.
once did, but over time, you don't always agree with things that you once agreed with.
Right.
But some people will never go back and read.
Because that was for a
Right.
season in your
Agree with
life.
something different. Yeah. I'm with you.
I like that.
That's heavy in the community.
That is because what we end up doing is we stop thinking outside the box because we're stuck where we were for survival mode, and then we never go to thrival mode. I just made up a new word, but whatever.
Say, oh, older people stuck in their ways.
That's the agreement that they made
They're stuck on to the mental
to the contract. Okay.
When they go back, that's where that real growth occurs.
So that's why I say there's a problem, there's a solution, and then you're the change. In order to get to the solution, you have to be the change to reassess the problem. So the problem is like the agreement or like the contract. I like using the word contract because to me a contract can be broken. Or I say that because my dad used to always tell me, even in buying a house, you always have walk-away negotiation. If you don't like it, change it. I've literally watched him like, we was about to buy a house and we was like, we don't want it. We were homeless for 3 months after that, but we found a house for sale because we moved out of state to get the house. But it taught, he was like, the one thing, you always have negotiation potential. You can always rearrange a contract. So even what you're saying, how people are stuck in their ways, that's a great concept because a lot of us in our community get stuck to one way of thinking and not realizing that we can do greater thoughts. We can do greater things with different thoughts. But what would it take for us to get a different thought? I don't even know. I got to put the tape back. What would I said? I do. Listen, this happened yesterday. Listen, no, I tell you, get your snorkel suit on. We going deep, right? So he was saying, "Oh God, what was I talking about?" And I really be forgetting, like literally. So basically, the contracts that we're taught, right? We teach ourselves to stick to the contract of surviving. In order for us to get to thriving, we have to change the thought of the contract. So we got to revisit the agreement. Not revisit the person. Most times we try to revisit, we try to go back to grandma. I'm like, that was grandma's way of living in her era. We got to revisit us now. And it doesn't help that society is living in our era now. Like they bringing back everything, the Flintstones, they bringing back. I'm like, why don't y'all give them a new set of cartoons? Right. So it behooves us at our age to not revisit our contracts. Because we're not only the parents, we're parents in ourselves. So these thoughts have to be vulnerable enough to listen to our new voice, because we're in a new thought process, to make better change. To then provide a solution to be better.
Yeah, I think that's important because I think a lot of times you get stuck in a particular pattern.
Right.
There's other way of saying, like what you agree to. But I talk about pattern and think about patterns that we create for ourselves.
Right.
It's easy because now it's a beaten path. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like,
Right. You're just walking it.
It's the path of least resistance. So you
Right.
just continue to go down that path because that's what you've always done.
Right.
It's easy to move around like that. And you'll get comfortable in an
Right.
uncomfortable situation. Even though it's uncomfortable, you'll just stay there because it's
Because of the pattern.
you're familiar with.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I find that sometimes breaking the pattern or breaking that, you have to strike a new path.
Right.
And sometimes that's a hard thing to do because you now have to dig through the weeds.
Right,
and find,
right. You got to search for that right seed.
Right. And then you're going somewhere different too. So
Right. But
you don't even know what's up ahead now. At least when you were on the pattern, you knew where you were going.
I'm glad you said that. So yesterday, not yesterday, 2 days ago, it was really foggy, right? Remember, it was real foggy. And I was driving on the highway, and I ended up meeting somebody in the elevator a couple hours later, and he was like, "Man, you seen that fog today?" And I was like, "That's funny. I remember the fog, but the fog reminds me of the future. You still got to drive through it. You don't know what it looks like, but you got to trust you got to get there." So in a slight way, that's getting the contract rewired. You don't know where you're going. Well,
You're committed to going.
you're committed to go in that direction. It's foggy. You can't see it. That's your future, but you got to go there. So in a way, you kind of rewire your brain like, I gotta go. No matter what, I gotta go. And that will kind of definitely block out the fear of
And
the
it's not
unknown.
even just that I gotta go. It's like I gotta go now because you could wait until the fall clear up.
But you know you gotta go. Right.
I'm going here. I'm going now, and I'm not gonna slow down.
Right. You just want to make sure everything is good.
I don't mean to interrupt your conversation. How you doing? Did you want
Yeah. Which one? Little man right here? Just walking?
Little man.
Yeah. You know.
So having that vulnerability allows your voice to be loudly spoken. And like you said, not speaking it is still loud.
Yeah.
It's still loud, right?
Right. Because you can show. You know, I say show me better than each other.
Yeah, right.
I'd
But
rather just like show you that there's a new voice I'm listening to.
okay.
You know.
And the voice is me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna let you dictate the
Right. How you feel about me.
Right.
Right.
Because maybe there was a time in my life that I did.
There was a long time.
Yeah.
And those are the times that we can't get back. Yet we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable to somebody else's voice in our life. And it's funny because I don't know at what age everybody grasped. I know I grasped it in my 30s, I think. Our parents are just as human as we are. Our role models, especially as a parent, our role models become ourselves. That's what I had to learn because I remember when I was 34, I told my mom, thank you for what you did and what you didn't do. Because what you didn't do taught me to be a better me for what kind of parent I wanted to be for my kids. So I had to turn down her voice and turn up my voice. You know what I'm saying? And that wasn't easy because you're like, no, my mom, she was there, she did, that's. But her example wasn't something I wanted to officially follow.
There were aspects that you liked and that you wanted.
Right. It's things I would hold, yet the things that I couldn't hold is what made me a stronger parent. You know, what made me the parent I want to be. So I had to realize I'm my role model because, again, our era is the ones we're parenting ourselves. Because we're...
You want to the skin and you want to just you gotta face it.
So yeah. This it's interesting because when you realize that your voice speaks loud and you've been turning it down for all these years, you almost get upset with yourself first. Because you're like, yo, you've been talking this whole time?
It took too long to really hear it.
Because you listen to somebody else's voice. So it's almost like at what point do you tell yourself, I've had enough, or I'm sick and tired of my foolishness? Well, kudos to you. Because, you know, the good thing is it may seem like, oh, it's later in life, but I've heard somebody say a few times, your best chapters of life are after you hit 40. Because remember, your 20s and 30s, you're experiencing, but you're not really taking on the true lessons. Mm-hmm. And now you have the time and the finance to put your passion to work.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I don't believe there's any such thing as late.
Right, you're still here.
Who are we to define our timeline when we're doing it one step at a time?
But I guess when I say late, if you think about a lot of the older actors and actresses, they didn't start till like after 40, 45 or something like that. So they were definitely, you know, in a place of growth. So yeah. But yeah, all right, y'all.
If you
Annie?
don't know how many years you got behind you, I mean in front of you, you don't even know how many you got behind you. So that's the perception, you know, when you say.
I wouldn't even look at life like that. I would look at it as I do, because remember, everything's about your mindset.
You don't think.
You
once
can't
you get
count
to-
what's in the past. You can't get it back.
Well, no, what I'm saying is like you don't think you can count. I mean, you know, like if you're 40, let's say you're 40, if you know how many years are behind you, but you don't know how many years are ahead of you.
Well,
So, I mean, God forbid you can walk out and get hit by a car, right? And then you're done. So when you get to a certain age, you get to the point where it's just like, okay, now I got to make sure that every day got to count at this point. 'Cause I don't know, you know what I mean? When you're young,
Right.
you don't think about dying because you
Right.
you think you're going to live forever.
but I guess for me, my concept of life is every day is not promised, right? So at any age, anything can happen. Because I've seen the newest newborn be gone.
Right.
I've seen the one, you know what I'm saying? I've seen the elders be gone. Right? Yet, on the spiritual level,